Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel. The metal walls around him hummed with energy from the fusion reactor below. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The diagnostic scanner in his hand beeped wildly. The readings made his stomach drop. Microfractures spread through the reactor's containment field like spiderwebs. The fusion core that powered Kepler-7 station was slowly falling apart. Marcus backed out of the tunnel and stood up in the engine room. His knees popped from crawling in tight spaces for 3 hours. At 35, he was getting too old for this kind of work. But he was the best human engineer in this part of space, and the aliens who ran this station needed him. He walked quickly to the control center. The main hall buzzed with activity. Aliens from 6 different species worked at various stations. The Zelkari looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. The Vrex had gray skin and large black eyes. The Kethtar had 4 arms and moved like insects. None of them looked up when Marcus entered. Commander Thexval stood at the center console. His green scales caught the light as he turned his reptilian head toward Marcus. The Zelkari commander was 8 feet tall and looked down at the human with cold yellow eyes. "What do you want, human?" Thexval's voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "The reactor is failing," Marcus said. He held up his scanner. "These readings show critical damage to the containment field. We need to shut down operations immediately." Chief Science Officer Vexnal, a tall Vrex with gray skin stretched tight over a skeletal frame, glanced at the scanner. His large black eyes showed no emotion. "Human technology cannot properly read our advanced systems," he said in his whispering voice. "These readings are meaningless." "I've been working with fusion reactors for 15 years, Marcus said. His voice stayed calm, but inside he felt frustrated. "The containment field has microfractures. If we don't fix them soon, the whole thing will collapse." Thexval laughed. The sound was like stones falling down a cliff. Humans always panic about things they don't understand. Your primitive minds see danger everywhere. "Look at the energy fluctuations," Marcus pointed to his readings. "The magnetic field is losing strength. We have maybe 6 hours before total failure." "Enough," Thexval snapped. "Return to your duties. Leave the important decisions to superior minds." Marcus felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept his mouth shut. He had learned not to argue with alien commanders. They saw humans as useful tools, nothing more. He turned to leave, but stopped when the station's alarm system began to wail. A young Kethtar technician at the sensor station clicked and buzzed in his insect language. The translator turned his words into standard galactic speech. "Solar storm approaching. Class 7 electromagnetic pulse. Impact in 4 hours." The control center fell silent. Even with their advanced technology, a Class 7 solar storm was dangerous. It would overload every system on the station if they weren't ready. Marcus stepped forward. "The solar storm will put extra stress on the reactor. With the containment field already damaged, we'll have a complete core breach." Vexnal's gray face showed the first sign of worry. "How long would repairs take?" 8 hours minimum," Marcus said. "We need to evacuate everyone and shut down the reactor now." Thexval's claws clicked on the metal console. "Evacuation would take 12 hours. The storm will hit us in 4. There is no time," Marcus thought quickly. There was one option, but it was dangerous. Someone needs to go into the reactor chamber during the storm. They can manually adjust the containment field from inside. "The radiation levels during the storm will be fatal," Vexnal said. "Maybe," Marcus nodded, "but it's our only chance." "I can do it." The aliens looked at each other. Marcus couldn't read their expressions, but something passed between them. A silent conversation he wasn't part of. "Very well," Thexval said finally. "Prepare for the emergency procedure." Marcus spent the next 2 hours getting ready. He put on the heaviest radiation suit the station had. The suit was bulky and made moving difficult, but it might keep him alive long enough to finish the job. As he worked, he noticed the aliens acting strangely. They moved with urgency, but not the kind he expected before a dangerous repair mission. Groups of them whispered together and stopped talking when he got close. 1 hour before the storm hit, Marcus made his way to the reactor chamber. The entrance was a heavy door that led to an elevator shaft going down into the heart of the station. He stopped at the control panel to run one final check. That's when he heard them talking. The communication channel was open on the main console. He could hear Thexval's voice clearly. "Begin evacuation procedures immediately. All personnel to escape pods." "What about the human?" Vexnal asked. "He serves his purpose." Once he enters the reactor chamber, seal the blast doors. We cannot risk him changing his mind. And after the repairs, the radiation will kill him within hours. Record his death as equipment malfunction. The insurance will cover it. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. They were planning to leave him here to die. He was just a tool to them, something to be used and thrown away. More voices joined the conversation. Evacuation ships are ready, someone reported. All alien personnel accounted for. What if the human discovers our plan? A Kethtar asked. He won't, Thexaval said with confidence. Humans are too trusting. He actually believes we care about his survival. Marcus's hands shook with anger and fear. He looked at the reactor chamber door. Once he went through it, there would be no coming back. The aliens would seal him in and leave him to die. But if he didn't go in, the reactor would explode and destroy the entire station anyway. At least this way. Some part of him hoped they might keep their word and rescue him. He activated his suit's communication system. Marcus to control. Ready to begin emergency procedure. Proceed, Thexaval's voice came through the speaker. Marcus could hear the lies in every word. We'll monitor your progress from here. Marcus stepped into the elevator. As it lowered him toward the reactor core, he heard the blast doors seal above him. The sound was final, like a tomb closing. The elevator stopped at the reactor level. Through the thick glass of his helmet, Marcus could see the fusion core glowing like a small sun. Radiation readings on his suit climbed toward dangerous levels. He got to work immediately. The containment field generators were massive machines that surrounded the reactor core. Each one needed manual adjustment to compensate for the microfractures. It was delicate work that required precise timing. Above him, he knew the aliens were leaving, running away while he risked everything to save their station. The solar storm hit just as he finished the first generator. The station shook like a tree in a hurricane. Emergency lights flashed red. The radiation levels in his suit spiked toward fatal levels. Marcus kept working. He had nothing else left to do but finish the job. Even if they had abandoned him, even if they planned to let him die, he wouldn't let the station explode. It wasn't in his nature to give up. As he worked on the second generator, his communication system crackled. He heard the sound of ship engines firing. The evacuation was complete. He was alone. Marcus Chen, human engineer, had been left to die in the heart of a failing reactor while a solar storm raged outside. But he was still alive, still working, still fighting. He didn't know it yet, but his real story was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the solar storm. Marcus Chen was supposed to be dead. According to the official reports filed with the Galactic Consortium, engineer Marcus Chen died during a reactor malfunction on Kepler 7 station. The brave alien crew barely escaped with their lives. It was a tragic accident, but Marcus was very much alive. He sat in what used to be the station's main control center, staring at screens filled with data. His reflection in the dark monitor showed a man changed by radiation and time. His hair had turned white. Scars marked his face and hands. His eyes looked older, harder. The first weeks after the storm had been hell. The radiation had made him sick for days. He threw up everything he tried to eat. His skin burned and peeled. He was sure he would die alone in the empty station. But humans were tough. Tougher than the aliens had expected. Marcus had found the medical bay and used the automated systems to treat his radiation sickness. The alien medicine worked on human biology better than he had hoped. Slowly, painfully, he recovered. The station's life support systems kept running. The fusion reactor he had risked his life to save provided power for air, water, and heat. The aliens had built Kepler 7 to run automatically for long periods. They just never expected anyone to be left behind to use it. As his health improved, Marcus began exploring. Kepler 7 was huge. The aliens had only used the upper levels for mining operations. Below them, deck after deck stretched down into darkness. Most areas had been sealed off, marked as unstable or non-functional. Marcus was an engineer. He didn't like mysteries. He started with the basic systems: food generators, water recyclers, air purifiers. The alien technology was advanced but not impossible to understand. Marcus had always been good at figuring out how things worked. What he found surprised him. The aliens' advanced systems were actually built on top of much older technology. Underneath their shiny control panels and glowing displays, he found machines that were far more sophisticated than anything the current galactic powers could build. The mining equipment was the first clue. The massive drill systems that harvested minerals from the asteroid field weren't really mining tools. They were something else, disguised and repurposed. The power requirements were wrong. The targeting systems were too precise. The energy output was 10 times what you needed to break rocks. Marcus dug deeper, literally. He took maintenance elevators down to levels that had been abandoned for centuries. His flashlight cut through dust and darkness, revealing corridors that stretched for miles. The architecture was different from anything he had seen before. The walls curved in patterns that hurt to look at. The metal was harder than diamond but warm to the touch. In the deepest level he could reach, Marcus found the heart of the station. A massive chamber filled with crystalline structures that hummed with power. Computer systems that made the aliens' technology look like stone tools. Data banks that contained information from civilizations that had died before any current species had learned to make fire. The ancient builders called themselves the architects. They had built Kepler-7 as a guardian station, one of thousands scattered across the galaxy. Its job was to watch over developing civilizations, to protect them from cosmic threats, and to judge whether they deserved to survive. The station's AI had been dormant for millions of years, waiting for someone worthy to wake it up. Marcus wasn't sure what made him worthy. Maybe it was his refusal to give up. Maybe it was his willingness to sacrifice himself for others, even those who had betrayed him. Maybe the AI just recognized something human in him that it found interesting. "You are not like the others," the AI said when it finally spoke to him. Its voice came from everywhere at once, speaking in perfect English it had learned by scanning his mind. "What others?" Marcus asked. "The current users of this station. They see only the surface, the simple tools we provided for their use. They lack the curiosity to look deeper." Marcus stood in the crystal chamber surrounded by technology he barely understood. "What are you?" "I am the Guardian. I was created to protect and guide. But I have slept too long. The galaxy has changed. New species have risen, but they have not grown wiser. The aliens who left me here, among others, they have great power but small minds. They see strength only in destruction. They cannot imagine building something greater than themselves." Marcus learned that the station was not alone. The Guardian showed him star maps marking the locations of other architect installations across the galaxy. Most were dead, destroyed by the civilizations they were meant to protect. Some had been found and stripped for parts. Others had defended themselves by eliminating entire species. "Why didn't you protect yourself?" Marcus asked. "We hoped they would learn. We hoped they would grow beyond their current limitations. We were patient, and now we have you." The Guardian began teaching Marcus about the true technology hidden in the station. Nanotechnology that could repair his radiation damage while making him stronger. Computer interfaces that connected directly to his brain, letting him control the station systems with a thought. Weapons that could crack planets or target single cells with equal precision. Marcus was careful. He remembered the stories of humans who found alien technology and went mad with power. But the Guardian was a patient teacher. It showed him not just how to use the ancient systems, but why they had been built. "Power without wisdom is destruction," it told him. "Wisdom without power is useless." The architects learned to balance both. As the months passed, Marcus changed. The nanotechnology healed his scars and strengthened his body. The mental interfaces expanded his mind, letting him think faster and see patterns he had never noticed before. He was still human, but he was becoming something more. Through the station's long-range sensors, he watched the galaxy. He saw the aliens who had abandoned him receiving medals for their heroic escape from Kepler-7. He saw Commander Thexval promoted to Admiral. He saw human colonies being exploited, human workers treated like disposable equipment. He saw the same arrogance and cruelty that had nearly killed him being used against his entire species. The Guardian watched too. "They have not learned," it said sadly. "They have grown more powerful but not more wise." Marcus felt something cold and hard growing in his chest. The aliens thought he was dead. They thought they had gotten away with murder. They went on with their lives, never knowing that the human they had abandoned was learning to use weapons that could reshape the galaxy. "What do you want me to do?" Marcus asked, what the architects could not. "What I was built for but never allowed to complete, which is?" "Judge them." Marcus looked at the screens showing him the galaxy. Somewhere out there, Admiral Thexval was planning his next operation. Human colonies were being stripped of resources. Weaker species were being enslaved or eliminated. The old Marcus would have found a way to report the crimes, to work within the system for justice. But the old Marcus had died in the reactor chamber. The man who sat in the Architect Command Center was something new, something the galaxy wasn't ready for. "Show me the weapon systems," Marcus said. The Guardian's crystalline structures pulsed with approval. "As you wish." 18 months after his abandonment, Marcus Chen was no longer entirely human. He stood in the transformed command center of Kepler-7. His consciousness spread through every system of the massive station. The neural interfaces the Guardian had given him let him feel the station like his own body. When ships passed through the asteroid field, he sensed their heat signatures. When solar winds buffeted the outer hull, he felt it like a gentle breeze. The mining platform the aliens had abandoned was gone. In its place stood a fortress that could have challenged entire fleets. But Marcus kept it hidden. To any passing scanner, Kepler-7 still looked like a broken mining station, just another piece of space junk floating in the asteroid belt. The Guardian had been a good teacher. Over the long months, it had shown Marcus the true purpose of the ancient technology. The architects hadn't just built weapons, they had built judges. Every civilization faces the same test, the Guardian explained as Marcus learned to control the station's vast sensor arrays. Do they use their power to build or to destroy? Do they protect the weak or exploit them? Do they grow beyond their primitive instincts or remain slaves to fear and greed? Marcus watched the galaxy through eyes that could see across light years. The answer was not encouraging. The Zelkari Consortium had expanded their territory by 30% since his supposed death. They conquered primitive worlds, enslaved entire species, and stripped planets bare of resources. When weaker civilizations tried to resist, they were eliminated completely. The Vrek Science Directorate conducted experiments on living beings from dozens of species. They called it research, but Marcus could see the torture chambers hidden in their laboratories. Millions suffered and died to satisfy their curiosity about biological limits. The Kethtar swarm consumed everything in their path like a plague of metal locusts. They didn't even use most of what they took. They just couldn't stop taking it. And humans? Humans were still treated like disposable equipment. Their colonies provided cheap labor and raw materials for alien empires. When human workers died in dangerous conditions, no one investigated. When human ships disappeared in deep space, no one searched for survivors. Marcus had become something more than human, but he had not forgotten what it meant to be human. The anger that had sustained him through radiation sickness and loneliness had grown into something colder and more focused. The aliens thought they were the superior species. They were about to learn otherwise. The first test came when a consortium slave ship entered the asteroid field where Kepler-7 was hidden. The ship's commander was a Zelkari named Gex Hull. His reputation for cruelty was known across 3 sectors. He captured primitive species and sold them to work camps where life expectancy was measured in months, not years. Marcus watched through the station's sensors as the slave ship moved slowly through the asteroids. Its cargo holds were full of Terran children taken from a human colony that had tried to resist consortium rule. 300 kids between the ages of 8 and 16, packed into metal crates like animals. The old Marcus would have called for help, would have tried to work through proper channels, would have filed reports that would be ignored by alien bureaucrats who didn't care about human lives. The new Marcus had better options. He powered up weapon systems that had been sleeping for millions of years. The station's main cannon could have vaporized the slave ship instantly, but that would be too quick. Too merciful. Instead, Marcus reached out with the station's tractor beam and grabbed the ship gently. The Zelkari crew panicked as their engines died and their weapon systems failed. Their communications were jammed. Their sensors showed empty space where something impossible was holding them. Marcus opened a channel to their bridge. His voice, changed by months of interfacing with alien technology, filled their command center. Commander Gex Hull. The lizard-like alien spun around, looking for the source of the voice. "Who is this? Show yourself." "You don't recognize me?" "I'm disappointed. You should remember the human you left to die on this station." Gex Hull's yellow eyes went wide with fear. "Impossible. The human died in the reactor accident. The reports confirmed it. Reports can be wrong. Tell me, Commander, how many humans have you sold into slavery this year?" "I don't know what you're talking about. My cargo consists of voluntary workers seeking employment opportunities." Marcus laughed. The sound echoed through the slave ship's corridors like the voice of a ghost. Voluntary workers? Is that what you call terrified children locked in metal boxes? The station's sensors could see everything. Marcus knew exactly how many children were aboard the ship. He knew their names, their ages, where they had been taken from. The Guardian's technology could read their biosignatures, could feel their fear and pain. "You have a choice, Commander," Marcus continued. "Release the children and surrender yourself for judgment, or face the consequences." Gexhall drew his sidearm, as if a simple energy weapon could threaten something that could reach across space to grab his ship. "I don't negotiate with terrorists. If you don't release my vessel immediately, the Consortium will hunt you down and destroy you. The Consortium thinks I'm already dead. Hard to kill someone twice." Marcus began the demonstration slowly. First, he disabled the slave ship's life support in the crew quarters. Not enough to kill anyone, just enough to make them uncomfortable. Then he selectively shut down their artificial gravity in specific sections. The alien crew floated helplessly while the children in the cargo hold remained safely secured. "Stop this," Gexhall shouted.
"You're violating a dozen interstellar treaties."
"Like the treaties about slavery? About the protection of non-combatants? About the rights of primitive species?" Marcus's voice was cold as space. "You aliens are very good at making rules. You're just not good at following them." The demonstration continued. Marcus showed the Zelkari commander exactly how helpless his ship was. He could control every system, every circuit, every molecule of air they breathed. The aliens who thought themselves superior to humans were completely at his mercy. "What do you want?" Gexhall finally asked. "Justice." Marcus opened the cargo holds and used the station's advanced medical systems to heal the children's injuries. Then he transported them safely to Kepler-7's habitat modules, where they would be protected until he could return them to their families. The Zelkari crew was less fortunate. Marcus didn't kill them. That would have been too simple. Instead, he used the same transportation technology that had saved the children to relocate the aliens to a primitive world at the edge of Consortium space. A world where slavery was the normal way of life, and where Zelkari were considered a delicacy by the local population. "Enjoy your voluntary work experience," Marcus told them as they materialized in chains in a slave market on a world whose name they couldn't even pronounce. The slave ship itself became part of Kepler-7. The Guardian's nanotechnology broke it down and rebuilt it as additional weapons and defenses. Nothing was wasted. Word of the incident spread quickly through the galactic underworld. A slave ship had vanished in the asteroid fields. Its crew had disappeared. The cargo had never reached its destination. Pirates were suspected, but no pirate had technology advanced enough to make a ship simply vanish. Marcus monitored the communications networks as fear spread among the criminals and slavers. Some canceled their operations. Others traveled in larger groups for protection. A few brave ones ventured into the asteroid field to investigate. None of them ever returned. Within 3 months, the slave trade in that sector had dropped by 70%. Shipping routes that had carried human cargo for decades were abandoned. Criminal organizations that had operated openly for years went into hiding. The galaxy's predators were learning to be afraid, but Marcus was just getting started. The slavers were small targets, bottom feeders who preyed on the weak. The real enemies were the ones who gave the orders, who made slavery legal and profitable. Through the Guardian's vast information networks, Marcus began mapping the power structures of the major galactic civilizations. He identified key figures in the slave trade: corrupt officials who looked the other way, military commanders who enforced unjust laws. He made lists. Admiral Thexval's name was at the top. The alien who had ordered Marcus's death was now commanding a fleet of warships, spreading Consortium influence to new sectors. His latest operation was the pacification of a system inhabited by a species that had just discovered faster-than-light travel. The young civilization had resources the Consortium wanted, but they had committed the crime of refusing to surrender them voluntarily. Thexval's orders were simple: eliminate all resistance, enslave the survivors, strip the worlds bare. It was exactly the kind of operation the architects had built their Guardian stations to prevent. Marcus began powering up systems that hadn't been used since the last Galactic War millions of years ago. The weapons that had once protected entire civilizations from extinction were about to be used again. The alien who had left a human to die was about to learn what humans could become when they stopped being nice. 2 years after the solar storm, the galaxy was changing in ways that terrified its rulers. Admiral Thexval stood on the bridge of his flagship, the consortium dreadnought Eternal Glory, staring at tactical displays that made no sense. In the past 6 months, 17 consortium fleets had simply vanished. Not destroyed in battle, not captured by enemies. Vanished. The missing ships had been spread across different sectors, operating independently. Some had been conducting pacification missions on primitive worlds. Others had been hunting pirates or rebellious colonies. A few had been transporting slaves or weapons to frontier outposts. The only thing they had in common was that they had all been involved in what the consortium called necessary operations, and what their victims called atrocities. Status report. Thexval commanded his intelligence officer. A nervous Vrex named Telmar consulted his datapad. Fleet Command has declared the missing vessels lost to unknown hostile forces. All expansion operations have been suspended pending investigation. Hostile forces? Thexval's scales darkened with anger. What hostile forces? Our sensors show no enemy fleets, no new weapon signatures, no organized resistance. That's the problem, Admiral. Whatever is destroying our ships leaves no evidence. No debris, no distress signals, no survivors. The ships are there one moment and gone the next. Thexval had commanded consortium forces for over 20 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and rival alien empires. He understood warfare, but this was something else entirely. Show me the pattern analysis. Telmar activated the main display. A holographic map of the galaxy appeared, with red dots marking the locations where consortium ships had vanished. At first glance, the attack seemed random. But as Thexval studied the pattern, he began to see the truth. Every missing ship had been engaged in operations against weaker species. Every vanished fleet had been carrying out orders to enslave, conquer, or eliminate civilizations that couldn't defend themselves. Someone was hunting the hunters. Admiral, his communications officer called out. Priority message from Fleet Command. The main screen switched to show High Commander Veltar, the Zelkari leader who controlled the consortium's military forces. His ancient scales were pale with worry. Admiral Thexval, you are ordered to investigate the disappearances immediately. Take the Third Fleet to the Kepler system. Long-range sensors have detected unusual energy signatures in the asteroid field there. Thexval felt a chill run down his spine. The Kepler system? That's where the mining station was destroyed 2 years ago. The same system. Intel suggests our mysterious enemy may be operating from that location. After the transmission ended, Thexval stared at the star chart. Kepler 7 station, where the human engineer had died saving an alien crew. The irony wasn't lost on him. If something was operating from that location, it had been watching the galaxy from the site of his greatest victory. He had been decorated for his heroic leadership during the reactor crisis. The official report praised his quick thinking in evacuating the crew from an impossible situation. The human sacrifice had been honored with a small memorial plaque that no one ever visited. But lately, Thexval had been having doubts. The human had been right about the reactor failure. His warnings had been accurate. His repairs had worked. Maybe his other warnings should have been taken more seriously too. The Third Fleet consisted of 43 ships, including 6 dreadnoughts and 25 heavy cruisers. It was enough firepower to conquer entire star systems. Whatever was hiding in the Kepler asteroid field would face the full might of consortium military technology. The journey took 5 days at maximum warp. As they approached the Kepler system, Thexval felt increasingly uneasy. His sensors showed the asteroid field exactly as it had been 2 years ago. The wreckage of the mining station drifted where they had left it. Cold and dark. But something felt wrong. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the asteroid field. Power output consistent with a major military installation. Show me. The main screen displayed the asteroid field in enhanced detail. At first it looked normal. Chunks of rock and metal floating in the void, including the twisted remains of Kepler 7 station. Then the computer analysis kicked in. The wreckage was moving in perfect formation. The asteroids were positioned to create overlapping fields of fire. The twisted metal that looked like destroyed station modules was actually the barrel of a weapon larger than his flagship. It's not a wreckage field, Thexval whispered. It's a fortress. Before he could give orders to retreat, space around the consortium fleet began to change. The asteroids that had seemed randomly scattered suddenly moved into new positions. Weapon ports opened in what had looked like simple space rocks. Energy fields that had been invisible to their sensors blazed to life. The Third Fleet found itself surrounded by a weapon system beyond their understanding. A voice filled every ship in the fleet simultaneously. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, but underneath the translated words, Thexval could hear something else. Something that sounded almost human. Admiral Thexval. The Zelkari commander felt his heart skip a beat. That voice was familiar, but it was impossible. The human was dead. He had died 2 years ago in a fusion reactor accident. I am Marcus Chen, chief engineer of Kepler 7 station. The human you left to die. Chaos erupted on the bridge. Officers shouted orders and demanded explanations. But Thexval could only stare at the main screen as the impossible voice continued. You thought I was dead. You filed reports describing my heroic sacrifice. You even put up a memorial plaque. Very touching. The space around the fleet continued to change. Structures that had been hidden among the asteroids revealed themselves. Weapons that could destroy planets tracked the consortium ships with casual precision. But I'm not dead, Admiral. I'm something better. I'm what humans become when you push them too far. Thexval found his voice. What do you want? Justice. For every human you've enslaved. For every world you've conquered. For every species you've eliminated because they were too weak to resist. The Admiral looked at his tactical displays. His ships were completely outgunned. Whatever the human had found or built in this asteroid field, it was more advanced than anything in the consortium arsenal. You're responsible for the missing fleets? I'm responsible for stopping them. Every ship that vanished was engaged in operations against defenseless civilizations. I gave them the same chance they gave their victims, none. You're a terrorist. A mass murderer. Marcus's laugh echoed through every ship in the fleet. I'm what you made me. You taught me that mercy is weakness, that the strong have the right to dominate the weak, that some lives are worth less than others. On the main screen, images began to appear. Consortium ships attacking peaceful colonies. Alien troops rounding up human families for slave markets. Worlds stripped bare of resources, their populations left to starve. This is your legacy, Admiral. This is what you built with your superior alien wisdom. Thexval watched in horror as the images continued. Every atrocity, every crime, every act of casual cruelty committed by consortium forces over the past 2 years. The human had been watching everything. The galaxy has suffered under alien rule for too long, Marcus continued. You've had your chance to prove you deserve the power you claimed. You failed. What gives you the right to judge us? The same thing that gave you the right to judge me, power. The only difference is that I'm going to use mine for something other than conquest and slavery. The weapon systems around the fleet charged to full power. Energy readings spiked beyond the scale of consortium instruments, but Marcus didn't fire. I'm going to give you the same choice you gave those defenseless worlds, he said. Surrender and accept judgment or face the consequences. Thexval looked around his bridge. His officers were waiting for orders. The fleet could try to fight, but against weapons that advanced, it would be suicide. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Thexval considered surrender. You have 1 hour to decide, Marcus said. Choose wisely. You won't get another chance. The communication channel closed, leaving the consortium fleet alone in the middle of a trap they couldn't escape. In the depths of Kepler 7 station, Marcus Chen waited for their answer. He had become judge, jury, and executioner for a galaxy that had forgotten the difference between strength and cruelty. The reckoning had begun. The hour passed slowly for the trapped consortium fleet. Admiral Thexval sat in his command chair, staring at tactical displays that showed his complete helplessness. 43 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, surrounded by weapons they couldn't understand or fight. His communications officer had been monitoring galactic news feeds during the standoff. What she found made the situation even worse. Admiral, she said quietly, the humans' broadcast is being transmitted across all frequencies. Every species in the galaxy is watching. Thexval closed his eyes. The revelation that the supposedly dead human engineer was alive and controlling ancient superweapons would shake the foundations of galactic power. Worse, Marcus had included evidence of consortium crimes in his broadcast. Images of slavery, conquest, and genocide were being seen by billions of beings across known space. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, 15 ships are requesting permission to surrender. The admiral wasn't surprised. Half his fleet consisted of captains who had joined the consortium for money and power, not loyalty. Faced with certain death, they were ready to abandon their posts and save themselves. "Denied," Thexval said firmly. "We are consortium military. We don't surrender to terrorists." But even as he said it, he wondered if Marcus Chen was really a terrorist. The humans' targets had been carefully chosen. Every ship he destroyed, every base he eliminated, had been involved in operations against defenseless civilizations. He wasn't attacking randomly. He was enforcing a moral code that the consortium had forgotten existed. The communication channel opened again. Marcus's voice filled the bridge, but this time it was different. Calmer. Sadder. "Time's up, Admiral. What's your decision?" "We are consortium military," Thexval replied. "We don't negotiate with enemies of galactic order." "Galactic order? Is that what you call slavery and genocide? We brought civilization to primitive worlds. We created prosperity through organized expansion. Some sacrifices were necessary for the greater good." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made every alien in the fleet feel small and insignificant. "I used to believe in the greater good too. I believed that cooperation between species could create something beautiful. I believed that intelligence and wisdom went together. I believed that advanced civilizations would be better than primitive ones." Images appeared on every screen in the fleet. Not scenes of war or conquest, but something else. Children playing in parks that spanned entire asteroids, farms that grew food for dozens of species, hospitals where alien doctors worked together to heal patients they had never seen before. "This is what I've built, while you've been spreading your version of civilization. Refugee camps for the species you tried to eliminate. Medical centers for the slaves you broke. Schools for the children you orphaned." Thexval stared at the images. Somehow, impossibly, the human had been saving the people the consortium tried to destroy. While alien fleets conquered and enslaved, Marcus had been building something better. "Where?" Thexval asked. "Hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Locations your fleets will never find. Safe havens for those you consider expendable." More images flashed across the screens. Humans working alongside aliens the consortium had marked for extinction. Former slaves learning to read and write in schools built from the hulls of destroyed warships. Children who had never known anything but chains playing with toys made from recycled weapons. "You could have been part of this," Marcus continued. "All of you. The galaxy is big enough for everyone, rich enough to feed every species, advanced enough to solve every problem. But you chose conquest instead of cooperation. You chose fear instead of hope. What do you want from us?" Thexval asked. "I want you to evolve." The weapon systems around the fleet powered down slightly. Not enough to let them escape, but enough to show that Marcus was still willing to talk. "Evolution?" Thexval didn't understand. "Becoming something better than what you are. The architects who built this station understood something you've forgotten. True strength isn't the power to destroy. It's the wisdom to build. The courage to protect those who can't protect themselves. The compassion to forgive those who have wronged you. And if we refuse, then you'll face the same judgment you gave to countless innocent civilizations. Extinction." The admiral looked around his bridge. His officers were listening to every word. Some looked terrified. Others seemed thoughtful. A few appeared to be reconsidering everything they had believed about galactic civilization. "You're asking us to abandon everything we've built. I'm asking you to build something worth keeping." Marcus's next words were, "Broadcast not just to the fleet but to the entire galaxy. Every species, every world, every individual with access to communication technology heard the humans' proposal. I'm offering a new galactic order. One based on cooperation instead of conquest. Protection instead of exploitation. Justice instead of power. Any species, any individual, any civilization that accepts these principles will be welcomed and protected. Those who refuse will face judgment." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the galaxy, oppressed species began broadcasting their acceptance. Human colonies declared independence from alien rule. Slave populations rose up against their masters. Primitive civilizations that had been hiding from advanced species stepped forward to claim their place in galactic society. But it wasn't just the weak who responded. Some consortium captains began broadcasting their own acceptance of Marcus's terms. Vrex scientists who had been forced to conduct horrible experiments expressed their desire for redemption. Even some Zelkari military units declared their willingness to protect rather than conquer. The galaxy was choosing sides. Admiral Thexval found himself at the center of a revolution he couldn't stop. The human he had left to die had become something greater than any alien empire, not through conquest, but through offering hope to those who had given up on hope. "I need time to consider your terms," Thexval said finally. "Time is something you never gave your victims," Marcus replied. "But I'm not you. You have 24 hours to make your choice. Accept the new order and help build something better, or face the consequences of your actions. And if we accept, what happens to the consortium? The consortium as you know it ends, but something better can take its place. A true alliance of species working together instead of competing for dominance, protection for the weak instead of exploitation, justice for all instead of privilege for the few." The communication channel closed, leaving the fleet in the silence of space. 24 hours later, Admiral Thexval made his choice. He ordered his fleet to stand down and accept Marcus's terms. Some of his captains refused and tried to escape, only to find their ships disabled by weapons that could target individual circuits from light years away. Others tried to fight and discovered that the ancient fortress was more powerful than entire star fleets. But most of the consortium forces chose to surrender. They had seen the evidence of their crimes. They had witnessed the alternative Marcus offered. They decided that evolution was better than extinction. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It took years to dismantle the systems of oppression that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Many alien leaders refused to accept the new order and had to be forcibly removed from power. Some species tried to continue the old ways of conquest and slavery, only to face the judgment of the guardian stations that Marcus had awakened throughout the galaxy. But slowly, carefully, a better civilization began to emerge. The former slaves became teachers, doctors, and engineers. The conquered worlds became partners in galactic commerce. The children who had grown up in refugee camps became the leaders of a new generation that knew cooperation instead of competition. Admiral Thexval, stripped of his military rank but given the chance to redeem himself, became an administrator in one of Marcus's refugee centers. He spent his remaining years helping to heal the wounds that his own actions had created. And Marcus? Marcus remained on Kepler 7 station, no longer fully human but somehow more humane than any of the aliens who had abandoned him. He became the guardian the galaxy needed but didn't deserve, the protector who enforced not through fear, but through the promise of something better. The memorial plaque the consortium had erected for the heroic human engineer was replaced with something more fitting. It read simply, "Marcus Chen. He showed us what we could become." The galaxy had evolved, not through conquest or superior technology, but through the simple human refusal to give up on the idea that things could be better. In the end, that was the most human thing of all.